Today we are going to talk about the Islamic philosophy and its applications in education. So really, when we talk about Islamic education, very important thing for us to distinguish between Islam as a religion and Islamic philosophy as the work of Islamic philosophers and thinkers. So it's really very important for you guys to distinguish that we are not talking about Islam as a religion, but the interpretation of those Islamic philosophers of what are some ideas, what are some principles that we should view or look at education through an Islamic perspective and Islamic lens. Therefore, those philosophers actually had three ways of looking at them, and that's not to confuse you, but it depends on the person's view of the world. There are some people who are more religious and conservative and believe that we should interpret, everything in life, including education, within the boundaries of Islam as a religion, and focus on these a lot, like Al-Ghazali. And so any explanation that you will have will be very thoughtful, will very linked to Islam and Sunnah and Hadith and all of that. Then you have people like Ikhwan al-Safa and other philosophers who studied the Greek philosophies and thought about the role of rationality and how rationality affect thinking, and what role can education play in developing individuals and developing the communities out of ignorance and out of the problems that they face. Though there are a lot of these people like Ibn Rushd, Ibn Tufail, Al-Bayruni, Al-Kindi, Al-Farabi, and other people. So the last one is actually looking at a more pragmatic perspective. Really, how can we today use education to solve the ongoing problems of the Islamic community, and really be a little bit more pragmatic in the way that we use education, like Ibn Khaldun. So it's linking it more towards work, education and work, and education and development of society, and so forth. As any philosophy, when we look at philosophies, we look at metaphysics, epistemology, and axiology. So let's look at metaphysics from an Islamic perspective. This is really the most fundamental question, because when we talk about metaphysics, we talk about Islam as a religion. So it's gonna reflect the religious points of view of Islam. So what is Islam as a religion? What is Islam as a religion? The testimony of faith. الإيمان بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله واليوم الآخر والقدر خيره وشره من الله تعالى. This is the most fundamental. If you don't believe in all of these, then you're not Muslim, right? So the first one is believing in Allah as the creator of the universe and the only creator of the universe. So Muslim philosophers explain that, if there was more than one creator, then maybe there are going to be some contradictions or conflictions in the way that the universe works. But there is always harmony, there's consistency, there is purpose for everything that Allah created, and the things in the universe, there is interdependence, they depend on each other, so they complete each other, sort of. We as Muslims, of course, also believe that universals exist before things. What does that mean? It really means that the universe was created before the human beings, and it's not going to end with us believing, or it will not be affected, like you've seen from idealists, if we recognize that the universe is there or not. So what is our role as individuals, as humans in this universe? Of course, I know probably you've heard about this when you were studying in secondary school, or before that Islam looks at humans as vicegerent of Allah, Khalifatullah fil ard, insan Khalifatullah fil ard. So what is that insan, or like a human being, or that vicegerent should do? Really, man is there to submit to Allah and worship Allah, and worship is probably the most important and fundamental, aspects in Islam. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْإِنسَ وَالْجِنَّ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ, right? So, and also that recognition that everybody is born on that fitrah that we call in Islam, which is the recognition that there is Allah and God that created all universe, and it's imprinted in all the souls of Adam's descendants. And so when we then really look at the relationship between man and the universe, we're looking at something as harmony. Man is supposed to develop the universe to يعني the hadith that says لو قامت القيامة وبيد أحدكم فسيلة فليغرسها. Then therefore really we are looking at harmony between man and the universe, and development of that universe to the utmost potentials. Really Islam is the religion that provides ways for humans to be committed, to be pure, to be happy, to be peaceful, and so forth. So by obeying Allah, hopefully individuals can achieve all of these objectives. Then if we look at what kind of knowledge are we expecting in Islam, or how does Islam look at knowledge? Knowledge is really the totality of life. We're not only looking at spiritual or intellectual knowledge, we're looking at both the religious and the intellectual knowledge. Therefore, man is both mind, body, and spirit. So it's not only the spiritual aspects that we care about. When we look at values are like any other religion or religious philosophy. Values are eternal, they don't change, they are absolute. For example, honesty is the same value. It will not change, it didn't change, and it will continue to be there. And there are so many values. Of course, values, when we look at them, values for the individuals, and also ethics when the individual deals with other members in society. So both should be respected and practiced. Before we talk about Islam as and its role or effect on education, I'd like to take a little bit of time and talk about the principles that guide that understanding. And those principles here that you can see in this slide, they are based from the Al-Azhar philosopher Muhammad Abdu. You probably heard about him. So looking at 6 principles: understanding of Islam, role of rationality, leaving the judgment of others' faith to Allah, and reflection on Allah's creation, and then also the direct communication between a human and Allah, and the tolerance as the basis of a human behavior. So let's take these one by one. If we look at understanding of Islam, as teachers, and of course we're looking at this in terms of how it affects us as teachers and as educators. So فقد الشيء لا يعطيه. If you don't understand Islam, you're not going to practice Islam well, and therefore teachers in Islam are supposed to be role models. So you're not going to be a good role model to your students, and therefore you're not going to be able to interpret religion, curriculum, teaching methods, evaluation, everything that you do as a teacher from an Islamic worldview. And that's really the most important thing when we observe the application of Islamic philosophy in education. The role of rationality, or looking at the intellectual aspects of individuals and appreciating the human brain and rationality and what it could bring is so much emphasized, and really has a lot of implication in terms of what curriculum should we teach. So it's not only about the religious subjects, it's also about the natural sciences and other things. And there are so many verses in the Quran that actually stresses this so much, like أَفَلَا يُبْصِرُونَ أَفَلَا يَعْقِلُونَ, and so forth. So when we look at the third principle, which is leaving the judgment of individuals' faith to Allah, we especially in today's world, we live in a very complex world. We are surrounded by individuals who are not Muslims, and we as Muslims, we are different sects and so forth. So when we look at this from an educational perspective, it is really, really dangerous. If I am going to judge you by your faith, who am I to judge you? That judgment is only to Allah. I don't know, what's inside you. I don't know, on what basis, because the basis will differ. What I believe in might be a little bit different than what you believe in, and so forth. So fostering, living in peace and living in harmony with others, leaving that judgment to Allah is really very, very important, and especially important for teachers, because as a teacher, you should be objective. As a teacher, you should not impose your worldviews on others. As a teacher, you should respect diversity and respect others. And this is, definitely is very important for you as teachers to think about. Then when we move on to the third one, or the fourth one, excuse me, we are looking at reflection on Allah's creation nature. Islam very much emphasizes that, we should go beyond the immediate knowledge. Just knowing and understanding is definitely not enough, because to know Allah and worship Allah in the right way, you need to understand the universe. There's a verse that says, إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاء. Why? Because they have greater understanding of the universe, of what's going on in the universe, and that greater understanding, leads them to know, oh, وَمَا أُوتِيتُم مِنَ الْعِلْمِ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. I just know a little bit of what's in there, so eventually, the more knowledge that you know about the world, hopefully will lead you to more understanding and more deeper faith, to be a deeper, faithful, Muslim. And anything that we do in terms of the curriculum, also as teachers, we should always foster that relationship and deepen that relationship between Allah as the creator and the students, and our students and our children, and so forth. So another aspect is that there is direct communication in Islam between individuals and Allah. So you don't need a religious authority between you and Allah to tell them what you need. So what does that mean then? And what are some implications for that? What it means is that there's no authority of one Muslim over another Muslim. All right? And teachers as well do not have that authority and control of their students. Even the Prophet was advised, that وَلَسْتَ عَلَيْهِمْ بِمُسَيْطَرٍ. Therefore, as teachers, how do we, guide students? How do we instill those Islamic values? Just by being good role models, and forcing people to obey you as a teacher will not necessarily lead to that real obedience. Obedience is something that's internal, and it should come from the person, or him or herself. Therefore, definitely teachers should not look at themselves as controllers of students. Another aspect is that tolerance as the basis of a human behavior. Unfortunately, in today's world, we live in so many contradictions, and Muslims are looked as terrorists, looked as extremists, and so forth. And definitely that's not what Islam is about. Islam is a religion of peace. It's a religion of, it's a universal religion, so it's for everybody. Therefore, the Prophet was advised to, خُذُوا الْعَفْوَ وَأْمُرْ بِالْعُرْفِ وَأَعْرِضْ عَنِ الْجَاهِلِينَ. إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُعْتَدِينَ. So we as Muslim, we are advised not to hurt others in any way or form or shape. So as teachers, as educators, really having that tolerance and understanding of the differences that we have in opinion or in with others should guide the way that we organize our classrooms, we organize education, the values that we instill in our students, and so forth. Also, the medium, the way they communicate, the way of communication with others, that also should reflect tolerance, respect, and humanity or humility, when we deal with people from different opinions. So, thus, what's the when we look at the different aspects now, every philosophy we do this. We look at the purpose, the curriculum, the teaching methods, the evaluation, and role of teacher and learners. So when we look at the role, the purposes of education, the ultimate and main purpose of education in Islam is to know Allah and worship Allah. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. That's the ultimate purpose. So everything else should, in a way, directly or indirectly, lead to this aspect. Really, education in Islam is about creating individuals who are good Muslims, who are balanced in their life, who are, who observe Allah in this life, so in the afterlife they are happier. They would, reach to a happy ending. So developing all of the good, behaviors and feeling and ethics is very important. And these are some ethics you can look at later. When we look at the curriculum, then we're looking, like I said, curriculum in Islam is not only the Quran and Sunnah, but as Muslims, the Quran and Sunnah are the main sources of Islam. So every Muslim needs those, and these are important aspect of, any Muslim curriculum. So, but that does not mean that we dismiss other, types of curriculum, like I explained before about the scientific and rational and natural sciences and, other fields of knowledge. The teaching methods, they vary. I mean, I think probably the best way to look at it is to look at maybe the examples from how other philosophers like Al-Ghazali and Ibn Khaldun looked at them. So, for example, Al-Ghazali, suggests practical application of knowledge, meaning that knowledge should not only be, theoretical knowledge, but should be linked to application. This is really very important, the divine intuition. In Islamic thinkers believe that, you as learners use your inductive reasoning, use scientific research, use so many things, but it's up to Allah to help you succeed. So Allah's divine revelation for you as a learner will lead to your success. So that's why always we have this idea, tawakkul ala Allah, we always say inshallah, So why do we do that? Because without that divine, revelation for us as learners, we may not know that. We may not get there. So no matter what we do. So this is really, really very critical. Ibn Khaldun focuses a lot on how limited we are in terms of our knowledge. And that even that limited knowledge that we have is has been bestowed to us from Allah. So there's so much to learn. Therefore, there's emphasis on self-study, on seeking knowledge and so forth. Learners in Islam are looked at as seekers of information, seekers of knowledge. They are not receivers. So you should not wait for knowledge to come to you, like what happens today. Students are expected, I should learn, the teacher will give me everything. No. Self-learning and independence and pursuing knowledge wherever it is definitely very important. Another thing is that, and I think this actually should be moved to the curriculum part, is ethics. Islamic ethics should be reflected in the teaching methods that the teacher uses, because the teachers are models for students, and they should be reflected as well in the curriculum and in managing the classroom and so forth. So, here there's a slide about reasoning. You can look at it, why reasoning is important, and especially in Islam. And, there's a little bit... let me talk about it then. Reasoning. We talked about reasoning a couple of times when we talk about philosophies. So using your mental efforts in order to understand something. But here we're linking it to Quran and Sunnah. And sometimes things are not there in the Quran and Sunnah. So what happens? You have new matters facing people. So Islamic scholars, try to actually help to reach some consensus. So they help people. For example, alcohol is mentioned in Al-Quran, but drugs is something new. So they had to come up with something because it has as much, bad effect as alcohol. So, and this is also, here we're talking about it in the context of teaching methods as one of the good teaching methods. When we look at the classroom, what does the Muslim classroom should look like? It should be a place that's filled with love, with understanding, with the teacher as a guardian, as a parent, there's no threat. There's a lot of nurturing environment in that classroom. So really, that way the students will look at their teachers as role models, not somebody to be frightened from or something like that. I know, like when I was when I was a student, like in Kutab, we have this terrifying image of what our Kutab teachers look like, with the long stick and oh, if you didn't memorize all of the verses and so forth, you're gonna get punished. Really, I don't think that represents the Muslim teacher. Definitely not. All right. So when we look at the role of the teacher is so much. I don't think there's any religion that appreciates teacher more than Islam. Teachers are looked at in Islam as inheritors of Prophet's knowledge. Al-ulama warathat al-anbiya. Teachers are at a higher prestigious position in Islamic community. Therefore, they also with that take some responsibility of being good role models for students and displaying strong commitment to Islamic ethics and values. Like we said, if they know it, they should be able to display it and practice it and so forth. When we look at professional ethics, many of those professional ethics, like honesty, commitment, honesty, commitment, working with others, collaboration, all of these are definitely important aspects that Islam so much emphasizes. When we look at dealing, the way that they deal with students, they deal with the students as brothers or sisters, or like somebody, guardians, parents, and so forth. They have to interpret their behavior from an Islamic perspective. Everything that they do, they should, their reference is not the school principal who would, ask them what did you do and what you did not do. Their reference is not, somebody outside of them. It's, they are their own reference. They know, even if there is nobody else with you in the classroom, there's Allah, and Allah observes what you do. So if you do a good job, then, you're displaying a good, Muslim behavior. If you don't do a good job, if you hit a student, if you lied, if you, did not prepare well, if you, let students cheat in the exam, whatever you do as a teacher, you should interpret from the Islamic worldview. So therefore, sticking to good morals and good ethics is definitely, I don't think we need code of ethics more than what we have. I mean, if every Muslim teacher sticks to the Islamic morals and ethics, definitely they will succeed more than any rules or regulations that we could ever do, because that reflects internal observance, internal responsibility rather than external responsibility. So when we move on to the students, students as well are appreciated in Islam. The students, like we said, they are seekers of knowledge and they are obliged to learn. There's an obligation for learning for every individual in the Umani society, in the Muslim community, because the first word that came to Prophet Muhammad was Iqra, right? And therefore, everybody is supposed to read, meaning learn and, get educated and so forth. So we are always like teachers and learners. It doesn't end, من المهدي إلى اللحد. It's ongoing. So your role as a learner is a continuous role that does not end very quickly. And with that, you get actually great benefits, because من سلك طريقا يبتغي فيه علما سهل الله له به طريقا إلى الجنة والملائكة تضع أجنحتها لطالب العلم. So you have all the divine facilities sort of there for you. So the only thing you need to do is to display how committed you are and really be mentally disciplined as well, that you seek the objective knowledge that is the objective knowledge and the scientific knowledge, and you don't go to evil or because the more that you know as a learner, the better Muslim that you will become. So I was thinking about this actually when we talk about the evaluation method, because I think evaluation is different according to what are you evaluating and why you're evaluating. So I don't think it's going to be different than the other means of evaluation. And today, in Muslim countries, we still have many problems. I talked to you a little bit, about what are the problems that we face as Muslims, in education. These are a couple of problems. You can look at these problems and contemplate on them. I really just want to maybe emphasize here that if many Muslim countries, when you look at the educational objectives for in the educational philosophy for any Muslim country, they're always going to mention Islam as a source of that philosophy, and they will mention that Islamic behavior is something that they are seeking and want to. So these are some problems for you guys to think about. I don't want to make this long for you, but I do want you to go back to your philosophy. You should be done by now. But please look at how would my philosophy look different, or if what would I change in my educational philosophy based on the Islamic philosophy. So thank you for listening. Please don't forget, you need to do your Evernotes, and this time I told you it might be graded. So do your Evernotes and go back and finish up or write up your philosophy of education. Thank you.